Thank you. Are you sure you don't want one? No? Fine. So, welcome all this morning for our parents' meeting today. We wanted to take the opportunity today to really tell you a little bit about some of the things we'll be giving some additional attention to this year. Obviously, it's our first parents' meeting of this academic year. So we want to just begin by talking to you a little bit about taking a step back and just reminding ourselves as to why we are here. So why is it that you send your children to CET? Why do you send them to us on Saturday morning?
To get some extra support.
Okay.
And then try to fall asleep.
That's I always wonder who's in the car. I see this shadowy figure sitting in the car park. It's like the guy's not looking with the heater on. So catching up with sleep. Fair enough. That's a good. That's one. Yes. Anything else? Any others?
Extra support on the two, I think, the most important subjects.
So as part of the extra support, obviously we're giving them that extra support because we want them to be successful. We want them to succeed. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
What is it, the things then, out of that support that you're looking to get, what are the other things that you think will help them to succeed? What is it that you are hoping that they'll get from that support?
Confidence. Like my son was saying that he's being taught how to speak publicly as well, which they don't do that much in school, I find. So he's getting quite a lot of confidence in that area as well.
Great. So confidence?
I think also, from my side specifically, the idea of with different people, and he gets to have relationships, building relationships and rapport with a different group of children with a different mindset, with the adults as well. Because obviously they're around a small team at school, they almost get too familiar, and then here they have to interact with so many different people, and even that, the growth of their own, personalities, it shows so much progress, just knowing that they can interact with anybody. You put them in any situation, they're fine, he's fine, you can, talk with everyone here, at school, bus trip, wherever he is, he's a lot more confident, and his learning, he's also approaching his learning almost in a different way, because schools have to follow a certain curriculum, the way they are, have to maintain that very tight, rigid format, whereas here, they see the same problem, but maybe in a different format, and approaching it maybe in a different way that necessarily isn't the way the school is approaching it. But they're learning so many different skills, from different social skills, academic skills, for me it's a bit of everything, just giving them a fresh approach to learning.
Great. Different perspectives, different relationships. Yeah, interesting. Any other points? Any other thoughts?
Motivation.
In what way? Any particular?
Well, it's about learning attitude as well, and you're also supportive as well. If I felt like my child was struggling in a particular area, then they've got you can approach you, and there's support there if needed, and also motivation. How they know they have to go to Saturday school, so making sure that they've done their homework, and same as school really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. Okay.
And build self-esteem as well with you have what's it called when you have the assemblies and things.
Yes, the
when you do
presentations.
and that's building self-esteem. They've obviously done research about whatever particular topic that they're doing, and I think it's really good that gives them confidence to speak in front of the parents and teachers and other children. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Interesting. Bearing in mind the kind of world that the children are growing up in now, if we think by the time they enter the jobs arena, by the time they have their own families and things, we're talking 10, 15 years ahead now, we think about the pace of technological change. What do we think about the kind of skills or the kind of challenges they might face? What do we think they need to learn to help them be successful, however they choose to define that, in that kind of world that's to come?
Perseverance, so not giving up as a first.
Resilience is always important. Yeah. Mira, you're kind of our bridge to that world now. We're all a bit too old for that, but you're still there. What do you think? You're kind of in the thick of it. Just graduated.
I don't know. I feel like having that motivation is kind of key. that you want to keep progressing, and you need to be confident enough to ask for help as well. Don't, you know, I think those are two main things for me, because I know for me that's been the main thing. You know, I want to do well, and nothing's going to stop me, nobody, and I'm going to use everyone around me as well to get better and whatnot. So I think those are two main things. So yeah, I think they just need that boost to make sure they're always, you know, looking for more and asking for help as well. No matter what age you are, I think that's the kind of key thing.
Great. Okay. Good. So it's really good to hear some of those things, because those are some of the things that we're trying to, focus on. And today was partly just reminding you about how we're trying to do that, and also get your feedback about how we might kind of do that better. A couple of you touched on the point of confidence and self-esteem. I think that is a really, really important point. I think in the 15 years or so we've been doing this now, I would say the number one thing, if you could do anything for any child that walks through the door, it's making sure you help to unlock that self-esteem. Because when that happens, everything just happens so much faster. And until the day that happens, you can push, and of course they'll improve in their maths, and they'll improve in their English, and improve in their science. But so many of the children that we see, their own progress is limited by their own limits that they are imposing on themselves. I've had to have conversations with children, and I'm just like, well, why do you think that? Why are you telling me that you can't get more than a C? Why are you telling me that you can't get more than a D? Why? And you break it down, and there's nothing there. Okay, yeah, they may be finding it difficult, but why are they finding it difficult? Maybe you just need to put some more hours in. Maybe you think you're finding something difficult, and now you can't do it, and therefore you think you can never do it. So they kind of get into this loop. So this is a very, very important thing. This is, I would say, the single biggest thing that we try and focus on. I'm really glad that some of you have picked up on it. And I think that's part of what makes our approach different. Yes, you've got the English. Yes, you've got to do the maths. Yes, you've got to do science and the other things where you can, of course. But until this thing is unlocked, they will only ever go so far. But the day this is unlocked and built on, you can always keep kind of building on. So that's really, really key. I think the other aspect, and I want to share with you something that I saw in a program that was on recently. I don't know if any of you saw a program that was on BBC. It was about 2 months ago now. It was called How to Break into the Elite. And it was, there was a reporter, Amal Rajan, I don't know if some of you might have seen him on TV. So he was talking about, how the education system and kind of professional life, there's a kind of bit of a disconnect between, if you come from certain backgrounds, you're more likely to do well and things like this. I'll let you watch the program. I mean, we didn't necessarily I don't agree with everything that he said. But there was one graph which I couldn't find anywhere, so I have to go back to your iPad and literally take a screenshot to get this graph, which I thought was really interesting. And this is a graph that he pulled out. And it basically shows you what's happened in the last 20 years. So if we think back to the Tony Blair days, early Tony Blair days, education, he wanted to get 50% of children becoming graduates. It's a great aspiration, it's good. So what's been the consequence of that? And really interesting to see this graph, because this graph shows, as you can see, the number of graduate jobs. So when it talks jobs, it means graduate jobs, because a lot of us, we would aspire, we would say we want our child to go to university or go on one of these apprenticeship schemes that's linked to a graduate scheme or college or something like that. So all those kind of jobs or their equivalent. Number of jobs, basically that's a flat line. Yeah? It's going slightly up, but not very much. Number of students, which basically is graduates, you look where that line has gone. And Amira, I'm sure you feel this.
Yeah.
The pressure now, universities now, number of people getting jobs when they leave university, that's difficult, right?
It is.
You can't just walk out of university as a graduate.
Exactly. But I made it.
You did,
Yeah.
and that's fantastic.
But
You will have known with your friends.
Yeah. Because they even tell you, I asked them why did you hire me, and there's only two graduates now on the scheme, and they said it's mainly because you're the kind of person we'd want to work with. That's okay, great. Like, my degree is irrelevant, but it's the type of person I am, so I was like, cool, that's fine.
So it's, this is very evident, and again, I've talked about this before, but I think this really highlights it. Certainly, when our company, we do graduate hires. Normally once a year we have a graduate round. So we had a recent one about, actually we had two because we couldn't find, it ended up being three because we couldn't find anyone, so we ended up having 3 rounds. Now, my company's a reasonably sized one, but it's not one of these blue chip ones, which has got the big graduate schemes, but still, the field is so competitive that we get plenty of Russell Group University students coming. They've all got 2 1s or firsts, or predicted to get. So they're all great candidates. Most of the time they all get rejected. That's why I had to have 3 rounds. This is not the first time. Last year we had one, we rejected everybody. Okay? So why is that? Because actually, it's not to say that graduation is not, going to university is bad. It's a good thing. But finding graduates as an employer, there's nothing difficult about that. They're 10 a penny. They come off the street. There's loads of them. They're all very nice people, by the way. I'm in the interview process. They're all really nice to talk to. They're all very intelligent. They have no social skills. Okay, they don't have good backgrounds in other things that they've done. Are they going to interact with the team? Can they think? This is why they don't get the job. Not because, they haven't got a 2-1 or a first, or haven't got, 25 A levels and all this kind of stuff. But these other skills are becoming even more important because, very simply, the competition there is that much more fierce. Okay, so that's why we're going to be putting even more emphasis on some additional skills along with the English and maths, about really developing their critical thinking skills this year and really encouraging much more reading and asking you as parents to engage with them on that reading side. Because reading develops concepts and thought and vocabulary, and without language, literally without words, it's hard for you to express how you think and take in and articulate more sophisticated concepts. And if you can't do that, how can you think more critically? We all hear these days fake news. What's real news anymore? Does anyone even know what's real, what's fake? It's actually really hard to tell. And the blur between this is becoming increasingly important, not only from a work perspective, but also at personal level. So again, I go back to a story that I read 4 weeks ago. I don't know if you read it. I can't remember there was I think it was a blog. There was a blog which was targeted at young Muslim girls. Okay? And the blog was just about, I think it was about positive stories about Muslim girls and things like this. So the blog itself seemed harmless enough. And the article was actually an expose that the blog wasn't written by Muslim girls. The blog was commissioned by, I think it was one of the departments in the Home Office. Shaba, you might have, did you come across the article? And you often in touch with these things? No? So it was commissioned by a department in the Home Office as part of the Prevent strategy. So there was basically a PR marketing agency writing the blogs. Okay, they were non-Muslim, it was aimed at girls, so they were basically non-Muslim women writing it. And the reason the story came out because there were 2 Muslim girls who joined, and they'd been doing it for 2 years, and I wasn't quite clear why it took them 2 years to do this, but they then left because they felt that actually the blogs were not representing real kind of Muslim views for people of that age group. And whilst they were generally harmless enough, they were steering away from certain topics. So almost there was an attempt to kind of define what it meant to be a British Muslim girl. I mean, they weren't going into theology and things like that, but through the language and through the imagery that they were putting out, they were not really talking about issues which might be a bit more, say, pertinent, but tough issues to deal with, wearing hijab or things like this. But my point there is, if you look at those kind of things, who would know? I mean, you would not know reading these blogs. And the fact that there's 2 girls who've gone there, and it's taken them about 2 years to figure out that there might be some other agenda. And again, I'm not criticizing whatever that agenda was. I'm just saying everything is so much more hidden because what we get, how we are getting it and the volume of information that we are receiving, it's very difficult to understand where is it all coming from. Who's giving me this information? Why are they giving it to me? Again, this is all part of understanding what is fake news or what is real news. There's always been fake news, okay? Because whoever's writing it is writing it for a reason. That may be sincere, it may be more difficult, but making sure that we have the ability to process and get through that information is obviously important, because in the future, as it already is in fact, but more so in the future, information is available. There's nothing special about gathering. There used to be people who used to gather information. That was a job. It's not a job anymore. You can get it all. The ability to interpret and analyze, critically evaluate, is important, whether that's in a work context, a personal context. You know, so these are we're going to be putting a lot of emphasis, because that is a skill that definitely is very, very important. And again, coming back to things like the workplace, so we talked about, you know, my own experiences, and I'm sure the other governors will talk about their own experiences. You know, they run businesses, they work in big organizations, they have teams and people who report to them. That's the number one reason, is that you might have a great degree, doesn't mean you can think. Okay, and I see that a lot, because actually getting information is, it's no problem, you can buy information. You know, can get it in for free. You need people, we are looking for people who can interpret and think on their feet about, well, what does this mean? Because the sheer volume of it, you know. So one of our businesses, just to give you an example, is an e-commerce business. We have access to 8 million data points a day. Okay? What are we going to do with 8 million data points a day? Who even knows where to start looking at 8 million data points a day about our sales? Right? Who's going to turn that into something useful for me? Well, you know, you've got to start thinking what might be useful, why might it be useful, run some tests, that worked, it didn't work, you know, try and test some other things. So these are very important skills. So that's what we're trying to drive. So over the course of the year, we'll be touching on these themes. Over the course of this term, what we've been focusing on, led very much by Asim in particular, has been on that first cornerstone ability of confidence, as many of you who have attended the assemblies will know. And we've been talking about, we've kind of tried to break down confidence into a few things. Now, we've talked about confidence before, but I think one thing that we recognized this year was it's quite a sophisticated concept. You know, when you talk about building it up, you know, you can break it into pieces, and it's very easy for us to keep, you know, having these assemblies, but actually are the children taking anything away? I hope they are, but you know, how are they practicing this skill? So what we've decided to do this time is change it a little bit. We've broken it down into three principles, which next half term we'll be looking for them to apply. And in this sheet that Asim just given out, are how we've chosen to break it down to try and keep it simple and relatable for the children. So we've broken it down to 3 areas. The first of these is about having the right mindset. So you all talked about that mindset as well, having what we call the growth mindset. I can do this, there is not a limit on my ability. They shouldn't be limiting themselves first and foremost. So we talked about that. That was assembly number 1 that we did. The next assembly was about planning and preparation. Because if you make a plan, and you make good plans and you prepare, that again gives you confidence that when you are going to be doing something, you're going to be able to deliver it, because you build the technical skills that they need to do that. That might be preparation for a presentation, as you said, doing the research. You know, it might be, if there's a speech competition running, it's practicing their speech so they, you know, are comfortable talking to an audience or comfortable talking slowly. They know how to talk at the right pace, at the right you know, level of loudness, etc. Or whatever that plan might be. And then the third element was about challenging their comfort zone. So this is a bit more of a sophisticated concept, but it's saying, well, obviously if you're learning something new, it feels difficult, i.e. it feels uncomfortable. So, you know, you have to accept that and understand that that's okay, and when you get good at it, it will become comfortable again, and all of a sudden you will have kind of grown your ability to do things. And again, that's, you know, but I think, you know, even as adults, we need reminding this all the time. I mean, how many of us are stuck in our comfort zone? You know, I know I am, you know, and we're always challenging ourselves, right? So it's helping them to understand these. So what we thought we'd do is, having taught them these 3 things, rather than just throw more concepts at them, we want to turn this into something practical. So this morning, all the children have been given this sheet, which Asim will give to you, which is basically, we are asking the children to think of a goal that they want to achieve by Christmas. And specifically, we want it to be done by the end of the term. It can be anything, academic, outside of school, if they play an instrument, you know, they play Rubik's Cube, they do some other activity, they're learning Quran, whatever it is, doesn't matter. The goal needs to be achievable by Christmas, or they should have their target by Christmas. And then we want to break down all the things in terms of the principles that we set forward to help them achieve that by Christmas so they can practice the skill. Because building confidence is a skill, and as we know, we all face challenges in our lives, so that's not going to change. And they need to develop the skills so they can fall back on it and always have a strong base from which to keep propelling themselves forward. So, as you can see, the sheet is very simple. Talk about your goal, evaluate your current mindset. How can you make your mindset more of a growth mindset? What's your plan to make this goal happen? And where do you need to push yourself? Where do you need to maybe get uncomfortable in order to help you achieve this goal? So we're going to ask the children to do this, and we would really like you to engage with them to put this together. So we're going to begin over half term, and each of the assemblies after half term, leading up to Christmas, we're going to be running through this with the children, and hopefully doing some kind of much more active participation with them to get some examples, find out how the children are progressing, and really help them to achieve that goal. So, and the reason again we set it by Christmas is so that by the time we get to Christmas, they've hopefully achieved their goal and they've got something tangible to say, yeah, I did this. They've seen the outcome of the skill, and then again we go again, you know, in the following term. I would also encourage you as parents not only to engage with them, but feel free to use the sheet for yourself. Okay? This applies whether you are 16, 6, or 16. And again, by way of example, I actually kind of go through a similar process every single morning. I do it in my journal. Yeah, this is journal number. It's number 13. Okay, so I do it. I normally get through 2 or 3 of these a year. So every morning I'm evaluating what I'm doing, what did I do well, where do I need to make myself uncomfortable, where am I just kidding myself and cruising, and I need to basically give myself a kick up the backside. And the other governors and other people will, I'm sure, will be doing the same. And no doubt some of you will be doing the same. So I'd say engage with them because that helps the kids to get it, but why not do it yourself as well? Because if you're engaged and they're engaged, it becomes a kind of joint, activity. And we all know that our children learn through our own example. And what they see us do, they all of a sudden, want to do as well. So that's a little bit of kind of what we've been working on and what we're hoping to do. The children will be joining us shortly at the end of their break time. And the idea of the rest of this kind of parents' morning session is, you'll have obviously a chance to catch up with their teachers and have a chat with them, but at the same time to be starting to kind of work on this with them. And following today, we're going to send out all of these things on email as well, but we're also just going to send a few YouTube links to growth mindset and so on. But I mean, feel free to go and search. There's so many links on these things, and how different people present these concepts. You often find that one speaker, the way that they talk resonates a bit more with you. So we'll send out a few links, but feel free to find your own if you think they're more relevant on that. I don't know if the other governors want to add anything to what I've just said. Before I just maybe break for questions before we start talking to the children. Yes?
Yeah, I just want to add maybe one or two things, just a reflection perhaps. I think, as Christine said, these principles we're talking about is not only for children, it's actually for ourselves as well, as we grow. I don't know how it feels like going back to school. It's like the handouts have been given and say, look, this is what you need to do. I don't know how comfortable you feel with that. This is also actually going through it, going outside your comfort zone as well, because it's not something we're used to. I think that's very important because the point I want to make is that learning and growth is a conscious effort. We need to think about it, and only when we say we want to grow as individuals, not physical growth, I'm talking about the mental growth there, then only it happens. It doesn't happen by itself. I think what we feel is in our community, and generally as human beings, parents are very worried about their physical health, which is important as well. Yes, we want them to grow healthy, physically, everywhere need to be good. But we don't put so much effort on their mental growth. And that's what we're talking about here, is on their mental growth, right? That's where the real potential of human being lies, in their mind. You know, it's incredible when your mindset is right, and the growth mindset, as opposed to a fixed mindset. It's amazing, you know, it's incredible what human being can produce. But to develop that growth mindset, we have to work at it. And like anything, you know, we go to work every day to earn something, right? We develop a skill. The skiing give example of children learning a bicycle, right? Again, it's effort. They fall down. They have bruises. There's a process they go to. After a while, they feel quite comfortable. Similarly, this also exercise, this thing that we talk about, is very actually mature. You probably go to a lot of tuition centers. Nobody will talk about these things. What we're talking about, and that's why we actually make it unique as a CET, because it's not about your grades only. We're talking about. Yes, we need to get A stars and A's and GCSE, maths and English and science and all this, but that's a very small part of the bigger picture. And that's what we're trying to share with our experience with you, make sure we all are on the same page, that to succeed in life, that's much bigger than getting better grades. What we are teaching here, what we're trying to share with you, is the key things, essential things, which will make children successful in their life. And that's a much bigger objective rather than being successful in your exams. So that's why it's a much bigger thing which we're talking about. So, but the main thing I want to just highlight is a conscious effort. We need to think about it and continuously think about it, not something once a month or once a year, like we have or what's our New Year resolution, for example, and we'll put it down, and after a couple of weeks we forget about it, what it is, right? But it's every day we get up in the morning, okay, what can I do today which will really make a difference, make me move one step forward in my growth journey? It's everyday effort. First thing, right? Okay, what are the key things I need to do? If I do 1, 2, 3 things, I'll be better today than I was yesterday. Tomorrow, okay, I want to be tomorrow, needs to be better than today. And today must be better than yesterday. Is having that constant thinking, grow, that's the only way to grow as individuals. I hope that makes sense.
Any questions, Manu?
I think an example of this would be quite good when you email us.
Well, let's try and talk about one right now. So, I mean, Asim, you want to just, I know you went through a few with the children, so maybe a couple that you went through and did a discussion with them.
Yeah, I think that the important examples, I think, are amongst us in our community. This is the interesting thing. This skiing that Shahbaz said this morning is that we're learning ourselves as we're going through this process. And when you speak to the children in our school, there's some great examples within that. And this is the other interesting aspect for me is that rather than making it just academic goals, think about the other goals as well, because the mindset shift sometimes can take the form of something out of academia. It could be something in their own sports, or it could be learning a musical instrument, learning Quran, hifz of Quran. And this is the kind of examples that I can give you, is that one of the students, ex-students, who's now a volunteer, he is a European champion in Rubik's Cube. And some of you may have seen. So I use that example just to engage the kids, is that, this is a young lad who clearly has a very clear logical thinking, that he can solve not just the normal Rubik's Cube, which I think is 3 by 3, he does the ones that are multiples of that, and just in literally a number of seconds he can solve it. So how has he done that? And you think about, if I pick up a Rubik's Cube, I can't even solve one side in a day. He can do the whole Rubik's Cube in 12 seconds. So that's the example you can give, isn't it? Is that right? First of all, what's his mindset been? And then how has he then gone about learning the process? And then how through that learning process has he learned through failure to then pick himself up and then continue and then become to that. So this sort of brings the concept to life. There's another, a very bright student that we have who is hifz of Quran. Now, that, as we know, learning the whole of the Quran is no small thing. So how did he do that? What was his approach? How did he train himself? And how many different examples he will have of his own, mishaps and failures through that process, but yet he's come through the other side of it. So this is the key thing I would say. There are so many resources online, so many resources. I would say, YouTube, LinkedIn, just even Google, these kind of terms like growth mindset, understanding about confidence, how to develop self-esteem. There are so many bits, and I think just really I won't go over the same ground, but if we just spend a little bit of time with the children on these topics, just no more than even, I would say, 30 minutes a week would be something significant that will help train them and give them the examples of things that they can start applying.
Does that help?
Yeah, so you can be outside.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be academic.
I mean, you know your children better than anyone, right? As parents, you guys can judge what's going to be. Some of the kids may have an academic goal, in which case is perfect to use around this format. If you feel that, by giving another academic example, they're going to completely switch off, then what is the thing that can maybe get them to realize how this is relevant for them? And then they can apply it to their life. Because these concepts, as Shaibai and Taskina said, they're relevant throughout our lives. This is just the element now where the children are learning through their education. But ultimately, this is something, it's a life skill.
That's also why, again, we want to target it for Christmas, because we want to make it very tangible. So, if it's something that, they might want to finish a book, pass a certain test that's coming up. They might want to finish a certain part of the Quran, or pass a grade on whatever instrument they're playing, or ride a bike, or whatever they do. You know what they're doing. So, but that means it's got to be something that we think that they can manage. You think that they can manage within that time frame, and then we set the plan up. And at the end of that, they'll achieve that plan. They'll gain confidence from that. That'll boost their self-esteem. And then we should go through the cycle again. Because every big task starts with small pieces, as they say. Every big task. So we do try and use these examples of things like Quran hifz and stuff, because they're very tangible. We all understand this in our community, and we can all relate. We probably all know somebody who's hifz of Quran, and therefore we can relate to them. And they took the whole of the Quran and they broke it into little pieces. That's how they learn. And at the end of it, they know what to do. So part of the purpose of the next part of the session is to actually start doing this. So again, if there's more questions practically, that's a great opportunity, and that'll carry on after half term. And as I said, it won't be that when they come back after half term, they're all presenting their plan. We're going to ask them, right, how are you going through this? And you keep evolving the plan, because as we know, plans kind of tend to fail when they hit the real world. So, some days are good days and some days are bad days. So then it's like, right, how are you evolving your plan? And again, we come back to some important points you guys talked about: resilience, perseverance. So we're going to try and take them through that journey, through the assemblies in the second half of them, and we'll keep evolving and updating the plan so that they can achieve the kind of goal. So hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions?
It's about having a positive approach. Everything's
Definitely.
achievable.
Definitely.
What you're doing in having a learning attitude. And if something doesn't go right, then reflecting on it. What could you have done better? How can you achieve it? So I always use positive approach anyway.
You have to.
No negativity, and I think with the children as well, having that positive approach, giving them confidence, and they'll have confidence, and you're not being negative about anything, will boost their confidence, you see. So I try that with my children, and also reflect, even when I'm working, I'll reflect on myself at the end of the day. What could I have done better?
Yeah.
Next time. So I think it's very important.
Absolutely. That's good. Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to hand over now to an opportunity for you guys to interact with the teachers on how your children are getting on, and we'll also get the kind of children in, and we'll start kind of building this plan on them. And we'll also be circulating, so an opportunity for you to ask questions, or if we can kind of help you through how to set this up and so on. Okay. Obviously, Asim is also available should anyone need a fresh cup of tea or coffee. Obviously, only he can operate the kettle, so feel free to ask him. Don't be shy.
Maybe we should have feedback on colleagues.
It's fantastic.
If you need feedback, I thought it was obviously amazing.
It would be approved. Growth mindset.
Very important. Don't get arrogant. Very important.
You're going to start bringing the kids
Yes,
in.
yeah, very important. Arrogance is fixed mindset. Good point, Oscar. Good point. You can make it better, a cup of tea. Don't get upset when I say it could be better.